Halloween. So we've all on a great sugar high, and also for my namesake company, Wrigley, to come down from the high on Sunday, coming out of Wrigley Field in Wrigleyville for the Cubs, and hopefully for all you Cubs fans out there that will continue tonight. So thank you all, and thank you to Governor Reimer and really the state of Illinois for their 30 years of leadership and actually hosting these awards and allowing us the opportunity to really come together to share and honor and collaborate with one another in an incredibly challenging space for all of us that work in sustainability. Thank you also to the Illinois Sustainable Technology Center and the technical forum that was held this morning. I think you'll pick up from there many of the themes that I'll speak to today, which is about collaboration and partnership. How do you do that with policymakers, with NGOs? How do you do it in our own companies to get traction on moving on this sustainability journey? And what a wonderful and warm and welcoming space here at the Union League Hub. So I'm going to start off just a bit with who Mars is. So Wrigley is a subsidiary of Mars. We were purchased in 2008, and we have a long history and tradition here in Illinois, and I'll speak a little bit about our manufacturing footprint and the office space that we have here in Illinois. But we're roughly about a $33 billion business. We're privately held and have been for over 105 years. Many of you know us through our brand. We have 5 businesses here. Wrigley, as many of you will know, is famous for its gum. We still make Double Mint and Juicy Fruit here in Illinois. And when Mars bought us, we then took over Skittles. So we have some fun candy and mints. Altoids is one of the longest and oldest mints out there. Mars Chocolate, you'll know us very well through Twix and Snickers and M&Ms and Milky Way and all of those fun treats. Where you may not know is that we're also a very large pet care organization, and Pedigree, Whiskas, Eukanuba, Ions, Greenies, Dentistix, which I'll talk to in a little bit. We provide food and nutrition for thousands and thousands of pets around the world. It's quite an exciting business that most people don't recognize Mars for, but they recognize our brands. We also have a Mars Drinks business, which is a B2B business, which is known as Flavia, and these are coffee and tea drinks that you'd see at local cafeterias, or I see it when I go get my car serviced. And then we also have Mars Food. Mars Food, as you'll know us, is Uncle Ben's. We also have pasta sauce known as Domio. And then, last but not least, we have Mars Symbioscience. And that is an exciting business for us that is leveraging actually cocoa flavonols. So we know cocoa very well with the chocolate that we make, and now we're leveraging that in a new part of our business with Cocovia and a new offering called Goodness Knows. So many of those things you'll see up and down the aisle. What unites us all, so there's about 80,000 associates. We have over 120 manufacturing sites all over the world. And what really unites us is the Mars 5 principles. And it was, when I joined the company 3 years ago, it was really what attracted me to the business, which is how do you unite people from different cultures, different backgrounds, different ways of thinking around a common ethos, and that was really around our 5 principles of quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and freedom. And picking up from the theme of Mark on the win-win, mutuality is where we play or try to play in the win-win, because it's not easy. And many, the themes of, is it equal, is it a shared benefit? And that operates very nicely in the sustainability space. and one which, as we go on this journey, I think you'll hear more about. So here's our footprint. This shows roughly where we're at. As I mentioned, we have 126 sites. That's manufacturing. We actually have over 400 offices and sites around the world. So it's an incredibly large footprint, and we use a lot of energy. We use a lot of energy the size of a small country, and we produce 10 million tons of product annually. So it's a big footprint, and it requires a lot of effort from the thousands of associates around the world. So specifically for Wrigley, here we are around the world as well. Again, in various places. We have a rich tradition here. We were founded here on the south side and made our Wrigley Spearmint and Juicy Fruit 125 years ago. We have 15,000 associates worldwide just for Wrigley and 22 manufacturing sites. And some of you may be aware that last month we actually are going to officially merge with our Mars chocolate counterpart. So we were a partially owned subsidiary of Mars. Mars has thankfully elected to purchase the remaining share that was owned by Berkshire Hathaway. And so later this year we will become the Mars confectionery business. So it's an exciting time for us, and an exciting time to be in Illinois as well, because we also announced that the headquarters for our global confectionery business, which will largely be about 30,000 associates, will be housed right here on Goose Island. So we have a LEED certified building on Goose Island that is known as our Global Innovation Center. So very excited about that. We also in Illinois have our Wrigley Americas business, which is just down the street off of Chicago Avenue along the river. The manufacturing, so this is the fun stuff, right? If any of you are how it's made fans, you might be able to find one there when Mars opened up its facility and shared a little bit of the secret of how we make chocolate and M&Ms. And exciting for us is Illinois is a big footprint for us, and we have been longtime members, as I mentioned here. In Burr Ridge, we actually have our ice cream manufacturing site. We purchased that facility. It's Dove. You might know the Dove chocolate. So we've had that now for over 30 years, and in 1989 was when we launched our first Snickers ice cream bar out of that factory. It's an awesome factory. If you're out there, they actually do one free day of giveaway to the community of ice cream. So you can come taste the treats, and they usually they'll announce it every summer. Also, we have a lovely, amazing Mars chocolate facility right in the heart of Chicago, which many of you may not know. It's at Oak Park Avenue, and just north of North Avenue. I have the luxury of living about 5 minutes from that factory. And if you were there yesterday, you got to witness all of the kids in the neighborhood that come through for trick-or-treat and free trick-or-treating. So it's an amazing facility there, also run by an amazing factory manager, Kim Latham. So they also have openings there if you want to go and take a look at the rich tradition. That's actually the first Mars chocolate factory and in the North America. So very, very special place for us. I'll drop down to Mattoon, which Mattoon came up today in the technical discussion, I think with the Illinois Sustainable Technology Center has a project down there. We also have a large pet care facility down there. That factory has been in operation since 1979, so coming up close on 40 years there. We have over 170 associates there. They manufacture Pedigree, Whiskas, and Temptations. We announced an expansion there in 2013. It was a $50 million expansion that added the Dentistix line. And last but not least, in Yorkville. Yorkville is our Wrigley manufacturing site where we manufacture Doublemint and Juicy Fruit. and also lifesavers. And this year, in the summer, we inaugurated an exciting new line out there of Skittles. So that was also a $50 million investment and brought 75 new jobs to Yorkville. So all exciting, great things for us in Illinois. We're committed to Illinois, and it's the backbone of our footprint. So a little bit about how we go about sustainability. So for us, it's really about the science, and if you can take away anything from me today, it's about science and it's about collaboration. We believe in the science of climate change, and in 2010, we set targets around what that science told us, and I'll speak a little bit about that. But as you'll see here, this is a planetary boundaries model. What's highlighted is greenhouse gas emissions, water, and land use. These are all impacts that we are using to set targets not only in our own operations, but also outside of our four walls in our supply chain. And there we rely on the scientific community as well as a number of NGOs to help us develop targets that will actually keep us within lower than 2 degrees for what we own and operate. We also look to social science as well. What is in the social sector? It's not just about the environment, but about the people. And there we've relied on Oxfam and other NGOs to help us guide us there. And there we've selected 2 social indicators that are near and dear to our business. The first one is human rights. So in 2014, we aligned with the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, and are evaluating not only in our own operations, but also in the farming communities up and down the value chain, whether those human rights are being respected. The 5th one, or the second social, is income. So this is around income at the smallholder level within our supply chains, and evaluating what those farmers and what those farmer communities and families are living on, and working to ensure that they rise above the poverty level. And I will tell you, with our footprint around the world, and in the many, many places that we manufacture and source materials, this will be a very growing and increasing focus for us, is how do we elevate everyone along the value chain to participate in a mutual or a win-win benefit. One of the areas that we started out talking and really advocating in the last couple of years, as I mentioned, is about climate change and advocacy. So for us, we set sustainable and generation goals, which are out within our manufacturing, trying to get our own house in order. But then as we started to delve into that, it was also about policy making and what we stood for as a company and where we needed help. And this was one area where we banded together with hundreds of other companies to advocate for the signing at Paris COP21 for the climate change and the climate carbon reduction goals. And the reason why we got together and worked with a number of corporates is that none of us could do it alone. It's getting a common purpose and leveraging around a common theme, and that was about how do we stay below the 2 degrees of warming. We've also written op-eds and in support of the EPA Clean Power Plan, and also with BICEP and other folks, other organizing bodies, to really all rally behind how do we make a transition to renewable energy. And it is a long transition. This is not a transition that happens over 10 or 15 years. It's multiple 20, 30 years, a generation, so to speak. So under our umbrella, this is how we collaborate internally. We needed a common theme, a common approach on what were all of our manufacturing sites committed to doing. And in 2010, we committed to 0 greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels by 2040. That was guided by the climate science and looking out based on our production today and in the future, what did we need to do to take responsibility for our own activities. And we are leveraging that under 4 pillars. How do you get there? Again, as I mentioned, this is a transition, and it takes a variety of approaches and strategies. And I'll walk you around. We published where we're at. This is a little bit but so first and foremost around operational efficiency. This is making sure that within our own factories, we're actually using the least amount of energy that we need to produce all of the products that we make. And this can be a lot of low-hanging fruit in the beginning, but we are 5 years into it, and we've hit about 18–19%, and we are going to need a step change in technology. That's why this forum is so important, and the technological advances and ideas that were being talked about earlier today are critical for us. It's how do we make gum, how do we make candy, how do we make food in a different way that minimizes that energy, whether it's coming from fossil fuels or whether it's coming from renewable energy. And a little bit about that, this is about behavior change within the factories as well. So it's aligning KPIs on not only production outputs and customer service targets, but then saying what's the minimal amount of energy you need? What is the energy monitoring that we need on our thousands of lines around the world to make this front and center for our associates? It's also about capital efficiency. So we need, obviously, money to reinvest in programs. So from an ROI perspective, it may not always hit the target of our traditional financial models on return on capital. And so working with the finance teams is how do you put together a bucket of ROI that will allow some of these projects to go forward. Many of them in the beginning stage may have 3 to 5 year payouts, but some of these are 10, 15, 20 year payouts. How does that look like on a balance sheet or within your operating plan? Which, yes, we're private, but we also have quarterly and annual targets that we have to hit too. So again, you can see it's about collaborating within the internal functional areas on how do you embed this within the operating plans. And last but not least is renewable energy. The renewable energy is a huge piece for us. It's how do we make more renewable energy available to the grid. It's not just about putting a windmill by our factory, which oftentimes you can't hit the ROI. So how do we leverage the power of other companies to actually bring that to bear and to market, utilizing their talents on building windmill farms or solar farms, and I'll speak to that in a bit. But one of the big ones that we hit this year was going zero waste to landfill. So in 5 years, our associates were able to remove 140,000 tons of waste that was previously going to landfill. And for any of you that were here earlier today and heard GM talk about their efforts, if GM hasn't gotten an award, they should, and they need to talk more about the incredible efforts. I thought we were doing amazing things, which we are. We have roughly about 17,000 garbage trucks that are no longer, that is either going to recycling or reuse or to waste-to-energy facilities. That's about 6% of what GM is doing today. So an incredible feat, and if you guys haven't spoken with my counterpart at GM on what they're doing there, it's amazing. And that's the type of activity that needs to be celebrated. That's driven by our associates on the factory floor. It's something that they can touch and feel and they see each and every day. So moving on to renewable energy. So last year, we made the announcement that we had joined partners with Sumitomo Corporation to enter into a purchase power agreement for 100% renewable energy that now technically would power all of our 70 operations. It's 118 wind turbines in Texas. We leveraged the power of a company to build the windmill farms. And then we worked with the government policymakers and took advantage of some of the incentives there that were around green energy, and were able to leverage that to get that off the ground. It was our first entry into this space, and it took a couple of years, and we had twists and turns. And this was also about collaboration and finding the right partner, and also meeting the financial targets. The first time we went at it, we didn't hit the financial targets that was acceptable to our finance team. So we went back to the drawing board and started again and got there. And this is all new green energy that powers the grid, and Mars is the financial backstop for that. That is an interesting agreement that goes up and down with the oil prices, and when we did it, oil was really, really high, and now it's low. So we are, as my North American team would tell you, they are paying for that now, but it was one that they're still committed to, and one that we've modeled now in another part of the world, which is in the United Kingdom. So recently this summer, we announced another wind forum in Moy, Scotland. This facility will cover the energy needed for our 12 manufacturing sites in the United Kingdom. So there was, again, a purchase power agreement, but we tweak. And we model things as we go along to not only meet the financial requirements, but also to leverage and get those win-win solutions, not only for the community, but also for the partners that are building these wind farms. We don't only look at wind farms, we look at other things as well, and solar panels, and we are going around the world. So as you saw my footprint of Mars, you can expect future announcements in the near future on new locations that we will be going as well for renewable energy. So going further, as I mentioned on the science, so if you look at the planetary boundaries and we set our target around 2040 in a generation to sort of tackle greenhouse gas and carbon, what about the other indicators that are starting to turn red, which is around water, water usage, and also land, which is having enough, not just land, but good land to grow the crops that we need to feed a growing population. And when we surveyed and took a look out there, there wasn't agreed upon science on how you would go about setting scientific targets. So there we worked with, in partnership with the World Resources Institute, and a couple of weeks ago they published new to the world targets based on, first of all, evaluating our footprint, and we are putting it to the test on what do these scientific targets look like with land, and that would be largely holding land use steady, and as we need more and more production for food and pet crops, how do you generate more efficiency in production off of that land from your yields, but how do you do it in a way that regenerates that soil? So there's a whole body of work that has been released there that I would encourage any of you to take a look at. We're obviously looking for feedback. This is about collaborating, first of all, you knowing that it's out there, but then also giving us feedback on whether it works. Also on water. So there it was really, really drilling down based on where our footprint is and where the crops are grown and where the farmers are. What does that water footprint look like? We use the WR aqueduct system, which is an amazing system that allows you to drill down and say, if I'm in a water-stressed area or one that's on the cusp and we're growing significant amounts of whether it's mint or cacao or corn or wheat, what is the water picture in that locale, which may be very different in, say, the western part of the United States versus somewhere in China, and how do you go about setting targets and goals. So I spent the better half of this year looking at the roughly 23 priority raw materials for Mars around where can we leverage, where do we need to focus, and later on this, probably early next year, we'll come out with what those targets look like. But this is our first attempt to get a conversation going about science in two additional areas that are near and dear to our heart. And in closing, many of you may be aware of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. When you travel around the world, and I pop in and out of some sustainability conferences, I don't get to too many these days, so I'm very excited to be here in Illinois to speak to you. But this is a growing area for many, many companies, which is how do they align not only their operations, but their sustainability goals, with driving the 17 goals here that are listed on the page. And they're not all relevant or salient to your business, so I encourage you to take a look at them and where they might fit, or where they may push you to go further. They have pushed us in our thinking in terms of how we might go further, but also how do we collaborate? How do we find others that are working on common things that we care about? And here are the ones that we've outlined that we think resonate and are most salient to our business, and which we will track going forward on how do we help deliver these goals across the world over the next 10 years. The big one here for today is partnership for the goals. And I would say that partnership and collaboration is a big buzzword in sustainability communities and sustainability conferences, and it's tough. It's tough to find the right partners, the right folks that align on a common purpose, and then work within not only your own organizations, but also along the value chains that need to make a transition to maybe some of our older practices that may not be more sustainable moving into the future. And part of the reason why you'll hear Mars and us speaking out more is to tell the world what we're working on, also to take feedback on and pushback, but again, to find those partners, whether it's in our supply base, whether it's in technology centers, whether it's in policy, so that we can start to drive and get momentum, because it's about scale. I mean, Mars obviously is a very big organization, but even we alone, and many of the raw materials that we make, and certainly around renewable energy, cannot do it alone. And so I encourage you to read more. I'm here, I'll take some questions, but also seek me out afterwards. You can find more on our website. We used to do big tunes on reports, 100-page reports, and then discovered that nobody really read them except for a few of us. So we put it all online to make it more user-friendly and engaging for the millennials out there. That's where they'll go to try to find their employer of choice. So you can take a look there. And with that, again, thank you all. Thank you for the incredible work of all of those that are going to receive awards here today. That reward and recognition within our corporations is significant. We don't have large teams, and when we're able to get an award for all of you that get it, it's a recognition that we are doing something good, something that gives back, also that makes our company sustainable, not only on the economic side, but on the